Here now to weigh in, I'd like to welcome in Senior Fellow at Defense Priorities and host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube, retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis. Lieutenant Colonel, always so great to see you. So as you know, the last big negotiation between the U.S. and Iran took the better part of 2 years to finalize. We are nowhere near that, but I would like to listen to what President Trump said just this morning about potentially making a deal.
What I think is that we're going to end up with a great deal. I think they have no choice. I think we're in a very strong negotiating position to do what other presidents should have done during a 47-year period.
So, Colonel, what are your expectations if these current talks actually happen? Again, we know that J.D. Vance is still in Washington.
Yeah, well, I mean, the evidence we have right now is that there aren't going to be any talks because the Iranian side, all they keep talking about is that if you, Pezeskian yesterday, for example, on X, he said, listen, if you think that you're going to come and force us into surrender, then forget it, because we are definitely not going to surrender. And some of the terms that are being tossed around and what kind of deal President Trump is talking about is effective surrender, because it's asking everything from Iran and giving them nothing. And if that remains the basis, then I think it would be irrational for Iran to meet together. We're going to have to get to a point to where it's give and take for both sides so that we can get this negotiated off. Otherwise, we're almost guaranteeing that we're going to go back into conflict. And I would take issue with one thing President Trump said. He said, we have all the leverage. They have control of the Strait of Hormuz, so that gives them profound leverage, which is why we're in this trouble in the beginning, since we chose this war that we shouldn't have started.
Do you think the vice president is the right choice to lead the American delegation?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, that's the highest level you can get short of the president himself. It's a great one if you're willing to negotiate in good faith, meaning that you're willing to give and take and not just come with a demand. That's a great one. But if all he's going to do is issue a set of demands, and you don't need him for that, you could send anybody else to give that, whether it's Witkoff or Jared Kushner, et cetera. Not that that's going to be received. It doesn't matter who gives that message. And so therein is the problem. More the messenger, it's what the message is.
All right. So last June, Colonel, President Trump said the U.S. military destroyed Iran's nuclear capabilities. We remember that attack in June. Now we're in the middle of a war with Iran's nuclear capabilities given as one of the multiple justifications for even going to war. If a deal is reached, we know that's a big if, what is it going to take to ensure that we're not right back where we started in, say, 6 or 8 months? Because, again, last June we were told that their nuclear capabilities were eradicated.
Well, and listen, that's part of, if we have to be honest about this, President Trump and a lot of his lieutenants went and said that this war started because of an imminent threat, that they were 2 weeks away from a bomb or 10 days away from a bomb, et cetera. And then President Trump conceded on his Truth Social today after that interview that you just put up there, to where he reemphasized that Operation Midnight Hammer destroyed all of those facilities last year. It's been under the Space Force operation. None of it has come out there. Therefore, it's a physical impossibility for them to have been 2 weeks from a bomb when they haven't even been able to touch it since last year. So when your question is, how can we not be in this position 6 months from now? We shouldn't have been in it this time. And it was a political choice. It was not a national security imperative. And so that is a little bit more difficult, because you have to have the president of the United States not choose to go to war again when it was not needed for our security. That's just the truth of it.
All right, so we were asking Robert at the end of his report there what the feeling is like on the ground, because, again, this ceasefire ends tomorrow. It was already agreed upon. President Trump just this morning on Truth Social claimed that Iran has violated the ceasefire numerous times. Now, he didn't elaborate on that. But no matter what happens with these talks, whether or not the talks actually even happen, do you think the ceasefire will be extended?
It doesn't appear that it's going to be. And President Trump, in that interview you mentioned, he was asked that question, and he said, well, I'm expecting to start bombing when the period comes to an end. It was a pretty direct question and a direct answer. Whether he's going to do that, it remains to be seen. But I mean, if the hope is, well, we don't want to start that yet because we want, to have a chance for negotiations. But if the entry points for the two sides are literally off the charts, then waiting won't help. And of course, the fact that the oil is not coming out of the Gulf, Fertilizers are not coming out of the Gulf, helium, all kinds of other things. It is a critical situation. Jet fuel is already on the red alert in Europe, even in the United States. I saw a report this morning from LAX is having some problems. You can't kick this can down the road. You're going to have to solve it one way or another. And I'll just categorically tell you, you cannot solve it militarily. All that's going to do is make it worse. We're going to have a negotiated settlement if we want to get this thing solved.
All right, so speaking of militarily solving it, my last question for you. A general with Iran's top joint military command today declared that Tehran is prepared to, quote, respond decisively to the enemy's breach of promises. We know, Colonel, that there was a lot of tough talk on both sides, but what do you think is the actual extent to damages on Iran's military capabilities?
Well, I think it's very clear that the things that matter, their speedboats, their drone boats, some of their underwater capacities, those have been largely untouched. And of course, the biggest issue is their long-range missile force, short-range and medium-range. Those are also fully capable. And we know that because they have so many of these underground missile cities, they call them, and things that we can't get at because they're under granite rock of mountainsides, that's clear that we were not able to get a lot of those. And they've repaired some of those, the entrances that we damaged. Those have now been cleared out. They have the capacity, without a question, to make good on the threat that they're going to hit the shipping in the Gulf. They're going to hit oil facilities, water treatment facilities. I mean, they have the ability to do what they have said here. We don't want to put them to the test on that.
Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, thank you as always.
Thank you.